Thank you, Mahesh. And we'll come back to all those themes because I think by now we have got a rich collection of themes which we should be talking about. Now I'm going to go to Mike's example, Mike, to you about your example of the spill tea and how the CEO of the British Safety Council cleaned it up to set the example. And there's the culture part which Mahesh and everybody else, all of us have been talking about. The safety is about culture. But safety is also about systems because when we're talking of large complex installations and you have a spill of kind of a chemical spill or an oil spill in some part of the operation over there, and being such sprawling facilities, how do you identify, how do you detect and make sure that non-compliances are being picked up early and acted upon? I'm giving again just a corresponding example in a larger facility. We need more than culture. So where do systems come in? Where does technology come into this play? Mike.
Thank you. Certainly the systems are absolutely fundamental, and I think, as I said earlier, it's a combination of the systems and behaviors that overall make up the overall process management system. Just picking up on the theme of technology, technology, you may think, has changed a lot over the last 20 years. But when you look at what is happening at the moment and what is predicted over the next 5 to 10 years, it is going to change in a way that's going to affect people's lives in ways we don't even know about. Just one thing around the Internet of Things. You all know the Internet, it's grown to about 5 billion computers connected around the world. But the Internet of Things is going to connect other devices. Now, that could be a washing machine, it could be your car, but in the context of today, it's likely to be tens or hundreds of thousands of sensors on every piece of equipment in a future process safety environment. And these devices will be able to communicate. Now, people are predicting up to 300 billion devices connected to the Internet of Things in the future. It also supports wearable technology because that technology can then also connect. And all of these things together are going to mean huge amounts of data that can help, if analyzed properly, and this is where artificial intelligence is going to come in, is going to start to really make a difference in terms of improving safety. But coming back to your point, Anish, yes, fundamentally the systems and processes have to be in place as well as the behaviors. In terms of checking that, that's about layers of inspections in audit, as I talked about, whether that be internal audit or external audit, can all help ensure that those systems stay operational and do what they're designed to do, which is to protect lives, assets, and the environment.
So on that last point from Mike, let me go to Ian again, back to you. You said that there are lessons which are not learned. That's one of the things, and the importance of certifications as we go along. Also, Sunil raised the point about the fact that there are lots of people who work in these industries who don't even have the education to go for a certification. So now, contextualizing your point to India, how do you see we go ahead in a large country which is still coming up the learning curve and the education curve at this time?
Yeah, difficult question, because actually it's that walking the walk that I mentioned. It's leading by example. And that doesn't necessarily mean that training has to be formalized. Training should be going on every day of their working lives. But that's really identifying the leading indicators within an organization and how we can predict. So Mike talked about the computers that can help us predict, but actually you can predict other values in terms of behaviors, and that's really where leadership comes in. As the example he gave about, was the CEO prepared to spill the tea? That's a great example of, actually, I have to walk the walk, I have to do it myself, and if I'm not seen to do it by the workers, they won't follow my lead. I would say, I've heard a couple of times in recent weeks, even the CEO. It has to be at least the CEO and at least the board as well. They have to lead by that example. Because if the board aren't seen to take health and safety seriously, and the CEO is not seen to take it seriously, then the workers will not.
Thanks for that. And I'm going to just press on for a minute with that point which you made about, and I made about the fact, following on Sunil's lead, that people aren't educated enough. Yet we are seeing methods which don't require that level of education. For example, using augmented reality and virtual reality for training and even for certification. Is that a possibility? Because those people can see, they can react to those situations, and you'll know their reaction. You don't need them to fill a form or write an exam. Is that a possibility? Is it happening somewhere?
Yes, and there are some very, very good examples I've seen in Bahrain recently where virtual reality was actually identifying a facility that nobody would ever have the opportunity to see, so that they could actually practice a role model and carry through an operation without actually being on the site. What that led to then is when they actually arrived at the site, they were familiar with the circumstances, they were familiar with the hazards, they could do the risk assessment before they even arrived. So they were comfortable in their environment.
Sure. Mike, you have a response?
Yeah, just to add on to that, AR and VR we've been looking at as an organization for the last few years, and we've now built either virtual reality or augmented reality as modules in all of our training courses we deliver. But the beauty of virtual reality is it allows people to learn by repetition. I'm just very pleased that flight simulators allow pilots to practice landing a plane hundreds of times before they actually do it for real. That can be the case in any operation with the use of virtual reality. So to answer your question, yes, I think it can make a huge difference in terms of applying that sort of technology.
Sure, and we'll possibly open it up a little later to the audience to talk about examples they're seeing as practitioners from the field. But let's come to the practitioners on this, on the dais over here, and ask Sunil the question. You raised the question about ROI, and it's all safety, ROI of safety, and it sticks in my mind all the time because things get pushed aside, and people just wish that it's not in their time something happens, but and then you can avoid it. So
touch upon the training aspect first, and then we'll take your question. Yeah, we do use the virtual reality for conducting the training for the people who are not that literate. Especially, we are using virtual reality for the people who are involved in the mining. So we have the underground mine. We operate the underground coal mines. So we are imparting training based on the virtual reality. Apart from that, we are using some route technicals. So for example, the persons who is supposed to work at height, so what are the various PP he is going to use? PP will be kept at one place, and he will be picking up the right PP. So that kind of a route method also we are using to train the people. Coming to return on investment, right? Yeah. Okay. The big industrial houses, they know one thing very much, their reputation is at stake. So because they are operating at many other countries, and their reputation is at stake. Even the finances or interest on the finances also are getting affected because of the bad reputation in safety. The safety statistics has the same. So that's why the things are percolating from the top level now. The CEO, in fact, we have the unique arrangement at Hindalco. We call it as the Apex Safety Board. The name board is deliberately kept. It's not a committee, what we call it. It's a board, we call it. The name board is deliberately kept, and the CEO, Mr. Managing Director, what we call here in India, Managing Director, he heads the board, and invariably, on second Tuesday of every month we meet. And the first entry in his calendar is of the safety board. Okay, so that kind of commitment is there, and since they are aware about the impact of the safety statistics on various aspects of the company, the things are percolating from the top to bottom. So that kind of culture is getting generated in a big industrial houses, but that is not the case exactly I was trying to tell you. In a small and medium scale industries. So we need to, if we really wish India to make a safe country, we need to address the problem of the small and medium scale industry. So return on investment, many often safety will be considered as an additional burden. So how to change their mindset to from this safety as a burden to safety as a facilitator or some kind of a profit-making center. So that is a very
Or
important.
at least the foregone profits are, that's, but I think it's more than profits. It's come down
It's
to
more than profit.
reputational
yeah,
aspects of
yeah.
those entrepreneurs and industrialists, yes.
For example, in Hindalco, we don't just count the result. We count the result through right processes. So result should come through the right process. Only then the person will get the appreciation. So
That's a fantastic point. I'm going to come back to that, or maybe Mahesh, you want to pick that up as well. You know, the innovation has to be not just skin deep. You know, it has to go deep inside over there. So, are you seeing any innovation in your organization or beyond, which is really transforming safety or safety practices, in our industry, especially the chemical industries? And the point is doing the right thing the right way. You know, is there enough process mining happening to understand where the bottlenecks of safety are, and hence there are insights which are coming out in the workplace that you see?
Yeah, I'll share my experience on that. So I agree with the fellow panelists, on use of technology. I think technology is nowadays available, getting cheaper, right, year after year. So what was not feasible 2 years back, I think we need to keep re-looking, and we might find it may just be feasible. My one watch out, in terms of bottleneck. So today we don't have technology. Let's say tomorrow you adopt any technology, whether it is augmented reality for training or anything like that. You might put some IoT devices in the plant to give you data. The bottleneck is not the technology. The bottleneck becomes, do we have management system, people looking at that information coming out of use of that technology? Technology will throw a lot of data at you. This simple Fitbit I have in my hand gives me so much information I cannot even digest. But if I make a practice to share some insights from this data, so think of data, insights, and strategy. Can we derive proper insights from the data? Have a management review meeting. In the case of Fitbit, it is me and my wife having a discussion every week. What was my result for the previous week? Did I walk 10,000 steps a day, etc., etc.? And then deriving the strategy for the next week or for the coming period. I think if that organizations take care, then the technology is useful, and we will not have the bottleneck.
Mike, you had a point on that.
Yeah, just coming back to the whole point of investment and the business case for safety. A few years ago, as an organization, we did a literature review, which had a really simple conclusion, which was that the proportionate of investment in health and safety reaps massive financial and social rewards. Now, investment in technology is high, saying it is coming down. But where people go wrong doing the business case is they massively underestimate the cost of an accident. All of the research shows that on average, for every £1 of direct loss an incident or accident costs, the real cost of the organisation is £36, i.e. 36 times more. And that is through lost reputation, lost productivity, a whole set of reasons why the ultimate cost of the organisation is so much. So I challenge anybody, and I challenge CEOs, to, if they really put a case together for investment to improve safety, that it doesn't make sense. If they use the right costs, they will show that it really does make really good business benefit.
Yeah, in addition to that, a lot of research gone into this, and Mike's absolutely right, 36 times, but you've got your insurable and your uninsurable costs, and your uninsurable costs are about 8 times, so for every pound, you're actually going to have 8 times more that you can't insure. And I've heard CEOs saying, well, all this training, it's a bit expensive, isn't it? And I quite simply say to them, if you think training's expensive, try having an accident, then you'll see what expensive looks like.
Thanks. And I think we got some very interesting stats over there, between insurable and uninsurable and direct and indirect. And I think these are things which make people sit up over there. So thanks for sharing those. I have, before we open it up to the audience, I have a wider comment on, or a question on safety response. Because it's one thing to prevent safety, and we have to prevent safety as much as we can. We have to use cognitives, we have to use training, all of that is there. But also safety incidents can happen. And as we have seen in the past, sometimes our response strategies have been completely lacking. So anything any of you would want to comment on the response strategies, that if it happens, the state of the art in dealing with such issues or incidents. Mahesh, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll just share one point and I invite the fellow panelists. I think first and foremost, if we are proactive and have a decent safety culture in the organization and have all the controls in place, in spite of that, if accidents happen, I think it's very, very important, first and foremost, not to create a defensive mindset amongst the people involved. Let's say simple example, if I enter a road accident and I come back and my manager, safety officer, they ask me too many questions, I will say it was not my fault, it was somebody else's fault. So I think it's very, very important to have open culture, open dialogue, so that we can hit to the root cause and then mitigate it. So this is for me the most important, because especially in Indian context, right, we don't like to talk about the negative. We don't want to highlight the negative. But I think when accidents happen, that's the time to be as candid, as open as possible, so that you can reach the root cause. Thanks.
Any other comments on that?
Acha, you talked about emergency preparedness. Okay. Yeah, do happen sometimes, even in spite of putting up your best effort, best things, accident do happen. So that's why we need to have an emergency preparedness, and that is one element of the process safety management also. At my company, my organization, we have a comprehensive emergency preparedness and plans in place to tackle any emergency. In fact, we have at a corporate, a crisis management group. So any emergency which cannot be handled by the unit, we call it a crisis, and we have the crisis management group team at a corporate, and the MD himself is chairing that group. So we have 7-8 entities, 7-8 officials identified for various elements of the crisis management to look after, including the planning, logistic. So, and at each unit, we have the touch point for those. So the logistic person will be contacting the logistic person at the unit in case of emergency. Planning person will be calling the planning person at the unit in case of emergency. Planning doesn't mean the long-term planning. This planner has to plan for the 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 1 hour. What is going to come in 10 minutes, what is going to come in a half an hour, what is going to come in a 45 minutes, what is going to come in a 1 hour. Everything is well set. Mock drills are conducted with the simulating actual scenario at the various unit, and I don't say we are matured enough, but we are about to.
Right. Right. So thank you, and I think those are very rich comments.